The whole creation was waiting. Romans 8:22-23 explained. Tom's 5 minutes Bible study, one puzzle piece a day until the whole Bible comes into view. When many Christians read Romans 8, they assume the whole creation means trees, animals, mountains, and the physical universe waiting for redemption. But is that what Paul meant? For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Romans 8:22. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the firstfruits of the Spirit. Romans 8:23. The question is simple. Who is the whole creation? 1. The context is redemption of people. Everything surrounding Romans 8:22-23 concerns people, not trees. Paul speaks of sons of God, Romans 8:14, adoption, Romans 8:15-23, heirs, Romans 8:17, glory, Romans 8:18, redemption, Romans 8:23. Trees are never adopted. Animals never receive an inheritance. Mountains never await redemption. The context concerns God's covenant people awaiting the completion of redemption. 2. The whole creation included Old and New Covenant believers. The whole creation included all God's people awaiting fulfillment. Old Covenant saints. These all died in faith, not having received the promises. Hebrews 11:13. They without us should not be made perfect. Hebrews 11:40. New Covenant believers. We ourselves groan within ourselves. Romans 8:23. Both groups awaited the same inheritance and consummation of God's redemptive plan. 3. Why does Paul distinguish they and we? Paul says, not only they, but ourselves also. Romans 8:23. Both groups were waiting. The difference was that first-century believers already possessed the firstfruits of the Spirit. Romans 8:23. The Spirit was the guarantee of the inheritance, which is the earnest of our inheritance. Ephesians 1:13-14. The Old Covenant saints awaited the promise. The New Covenant believers possessed the firstfruits while still awaiting the inheritance. 4. A transition generation. Paul describes a unique generation living between promise and fulfillment. Ye have received the spirit of adoption. Romans 8:15. Yet, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. Romans 8:23. They possessed the firstfruits, but not yet the completed inheritance. They lived during the transition from Old Covenant expectation to New Covenant fulfillment. 5. Believers were already raised. Paul was not waiting to become spiritually alive. And hath raised us up together. Ephesians 2:6. If ye then be risen with Christ. Colossians 3:1. Believers had already been raised with Christ. Romans 8:23 therefore points to the completion of redemption, not the beginning of spiritual life. 6. The redemption was still future. Paul says believers were waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. Romans 8:23. This explains why Hymenaeus was wrong, saying that the resurrection is past already. 2 Timothy 2:18. The inheritance had not yet been fully opened. The last day was still approaching. 7. The consummation arrived. Jesus repeatedly promised, I will raise him up at the last day. John 6:39, 40, 44, 54. Daniel connected this with the completion of God's covenant program. When he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Daniel 12:7. When that transition reached its climax, the inheritance was fully opened. The holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven. Revelation 21:2. The old covenant age passed away and God's promises reached their fulfillment. 8. What about believers today? We do not live in that transition generation. We are not waiting for adoption. We are not waiting for inheritance. We are not waiting for access to God. For all the promises of God in Him are yea, and in Him amen. 2 Corinthians 1:20. Greater than. For through Him we both have access by one Spirit unto the Father. Ephesians 2:18. The Adamic fall affected the physical world, but Romans 8 focuses on those needing redemption. The whole creation consisted of God's covenant people, Old Covenant saints and New Covenant believers, awaiting the fulfillment of God's promises. Today, believers live in the reality of those fulfilled promises through Jesus Christ. If this study has blessed you, subscribe to Tom's 5 Minutes Bible Study, share it with your friends in Bible study groups, follow on Facebook, and leave your questions or comments below. One puzzle piece a day until the whole Bible comes into view. God bless and stay blessed.